Hi, it's Steve from Paladino Power Project, and I'm bringing you a video on the SuperPower Calculator for web, meaning that it's a web page based version of the SuperPower Calculator. It doesn't have all the functions in the Google Sheets version, but I it's very useful and even a little bit less daunting for some people. They open the Google Sheets version and feel a little intimidated by it, and they shouldn't. But nevertheless, this one here is a little bit more user friendly, I think. And it's quite intuitive as well. This version was developed with Michael Lawn, who developed and maintains his site. It's Super Power Calculator, all one word, superpowercalculator.com. I'll put the link in the description of this video, along with some other useful links that I'll go over during the course of this video. So if you go to superpowercalculator.com, you come to this page and you can click on calculators to see the various calculators that are available. The other button here, profile, if you're the only user, you could fill in your information here, including your stride weight setting, your power units, preferred units that you're using. This should be your weight setting for stride. And you save that profile and it will automatically populate those particular elements for you each time you use the calculator. I want to use this calculator since it's one of the more common used calculators for estimating race power and time for races that are longer than, say, about an hour, maybe 50 minutes. Let's use this calculator. Pardon me. So you open this calculator, and if you haven't filled out the profile information, you just put it in. And I'm just going to use a hypothetical person that we're going to enter watts for their CP value, which is 300, and they're 70 kilograms. That's their stride weight setting. And we're going to do a marathon estimate. So I just click here, drop down. If it's something other than a marathon, you can half marathon, 10K, 5K, or if you want to enter specific miles or kilometers, you can put that in as well. Of note, if you have a stride reported distance that you're typically around 26.4 miles every marathon that you've run, then enter 26.4 miles. All right. So whatever your stride pod typically reports as the distance, reported distance, not the race advertised or certified distance, but your reported distance, that would be good. If you don't know that number, then just click on marathon. So then the next thing is you want to pick out a range of Rigel exponents. And typically what I do is a range of 3 units, basically. So how do you know what Rigel exponents to use? Well, number one, if you have the SuperPower Calculator for Sheets, there's a tab here that has all the Rigel exponents that are recommended, all right, that you can use. But I've also copied that tab, if you don't want to use the SuperPower Calculator for Sheets, Google Sheets. I copied it here in an article, in a document, a Google Docs document, which I will put the link for that in the description of this video as well. So let's say someone's figuring, okay, my marathon is going to be somewhere between 3:40 and 4 hours. Then you're going to use an exponent range of minus 0.9 to minus 1.1, and most likely minus 0.10 is the actual Rigel exponent that applies to someone that's running a marathon in this time. What is a Rigel exponent, you may ask? It's a fatigue factor. It's like your fatigue resistance, and the more negative it is, the lower the fatigue resistance. So these are the recommendations, and you can see that someone with a 220 to 240, their Rigel exponent is going to be more positive or less negative than, say, someone who's a 340 to 4 hour marathoner. All right. Now, if you miss some training time, or you feel your fatigue resistance is a little bit lower, then just slide this down a notch. All right. So instead of 0.09 to 0.11, you slide it down, and it's 0.10 to 0.12. All right. So you could use this table, or SuperPower Calculator has the very same table under this Rigel's tab here. And then also there's a website that's maintained by Alex Tran, who talks a little bit, actually better than a little bit, in quite detail about using the SuperPower Calculator. Now, is intended for the Google Sheets version, but the information provided here does also apply to this web-based version. So I'll put this link in the description of this video as well. So back to where we were. So we're figuring, okay, this person is maybe a 3:30-ish marathoner, so we're going to use minus 0.09 to minus 0.11. All right, about 3:30. Yeah, well, maybe. Well, let's say should have been minus 0.08 to 0.11, but we want to be really conservative. Let's say this person's a lower fatigue resistance. Maybe it's their first time marathon, in which case you want to shift it down as well, or more negative. So we'll leave these for the time being. And we'll say their running effectiveness, that's the RE, let's say we've determined it's about 0.90 to 0.92. How do we know that? Well, we could sample some of the athletes' long runs, some of their marathon power segments within the long runs, and plug it in to SuperPower Calculator. So I'm going to go back to the main. There's a calculator function here called calculate power metrics. In this case, running effectiveness is the only one that we need. There are other metrics that will calculate. It'll do it for up to 10 activities. So you can put in 10 long runs, or 5 long runs and 5 marathon power segments, into that data into this calculator. So we're going to choose that calculator. The weight is not important. That's only optional. But we're going to go to the activities. We're going to enter. I already put some activities in. So they had a long run, 19 miles, 2 hours and 50 minutes, and it was 230 watts. Let's say this one's 20 miles, 3 hours, and it was 228 watts. And so then we enter that in and slide this over, and there is, in green, is the calculated values. So this run at a running effectiveness of 0.912, this one's 0.915. So in a marathon, it may go down just a little bit. So we're going to do 0.90 to 0.92 as a best case scenario. Keep in mind that when you're sampling running effectiveness, it should be on a route that's of similar terrain. So if you're racing a flat race, you want to do flat samples. If you're doing a more hilly race, you're going to sample more hilly routes. All right. So let's go back to the calculator. So this is how you do it. Steve Bateman at from one runner to another also developed besides the SuperPower Calculator. He was the main person doing the developmental work for this. He also developed a calculator for taking stride data and copy paste, and it'll calculate running effectiveness. He had this working, but as of right now, that is not available as of right now. I'm going to put this link because if he updates it, it may show up in this link because he typically will come back to his prior links. So I'll put this link in, and you can take a look at it from time to time, see if he updates that particular calculator. So here we go. So we've entered all those pieces of data. Before that, I'm going to highlight this particular note. This calculator is good for working with races that are going to be longer than about, well, I said earlier about 60 minutes, 50 minutes, but you could use this for even 30 minutes and higher. But once you start getting below 30 minutes, what it says here, lower than about 30 minutes, it is not the best model. There's another model in the SuperPower Calculator that should be used for races lower than 30 minutes. So keep that in mind. So we're going to calculate using these Rigel exponents, this target running effectiveness, which is from the samples that we did, 300 watt CP, 70 kilogram individual, calculate, and there you go. It provides that sheet of, okay, if we said minus 0.10 is most likely, and here's the range, running effectiveness of 0.9 to 0.92, and this is the target power for that. It's going to range about 259 to 260 for that particular individual, and will result in a time somewhere between 325 and 330 based on that. But if we broaden that Rigel exponent range, we can see more conservative estimates would have the person running around 255 and a slower time, of course, because of the lower power. My suggestion is be more conservative in the opening parts of the race and maybe open up later on. And then, of course, then there's a best case scenario. Now, remember, when we did this, when we estimated, we used 0.09 to 0.11, and the estimates are coming out a little bit closer to this. So for this runner, you can go back and change this to a little bit more aggressive if you want to. Recalculate it, and there it is. And now we're looking at, say 260 to 264-ish. Up here is not likely. This could be like, if it's the person's on a just absolutely perfect day, then maybe they hit numbers like this. But I urge, go conservatively, feel it out, and then gradually start ramping if you're feeling good. And usually it's after about 3/4 of the race. And for the marathon, probably better to wait until 20 miles or 32 kilometers before you start really committing to a higher power. So there you have it. This is, I really like this version for its simplicity. I use the main version. If we have that calculator right here, I use this version when I'm doing my particular estimates. But if you use this one, it'll provide the exact same outputs, and it may be a little bit simpler for you, particularly if you've set up your profile. There are other calculators. I'll let you explore that on your own, but take a look. You might find that this is the calculator that you want to use in your particular planning. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.